This is a max difficulty guide for the Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion. And the first choice you make on character creation is your race. You can change it at the end of the tutorial, so it doesn't really matter what you choose here at the start. But this guide is going to assume that you choose either High Elf or Breton, as those are the two best choices for the build that I'm going to highlight. By far, it's not even close. In this character build, I'm going to choose High Elf specifically because they have the largest magical pool and they have this height modifier that lets them move faster. These are kind of the differences between the two races. High Elves have 50 more magicka than Bretons, which I value a lot, but if you look at magic damage taken, Bretons would take 0.5 times damage, and High Elves would take 1.25. So it's over 2.5 times damage from fire, shock, or frost spells. So it does make magic a lot more dangerous as a High Elf. However, Bretons only start with 60 health, where High Elves have 40 endurance, so they start with 80 health. But male Bretons do have 40 strength, so they have better carry weight than High Elves. So there's some give and take there. There's also the Bretons have their shield greater power. I forgot to type. And that is a once a day. They can take 50% less physical damage or gain 50% armor for 60 seconds. And that can be really useful if you actually want to level heavy armor. However, I care about convenience a lot, and I just don't want to have to wait 24 hours, and I don't want to waste my time leveling heavy armor. I think it's just too tedious. After you select your race, you start walking down this tunnel. I like to shoot these guys with fireballs because as a High Elf who chooses the magic specialization and destruction as a major skill, I start with 40 destruction skill. Now you want to get to 50 because at 50 destruction skill you can cast journeyman spells, and that makes a big difference. Now you notice when I hit these guys 3 times, they pull their sword. You can just yield quickly and they won't kill you. Though if you are in max difficulty, they will one-shot you, so you want to be careful about that so you don't waste a bunch of your time. After you have looted those guys from their potions, these guys start to leave, and you have the first battle of max difficulty. And the only reason I'm highlighting this specific combat is because it's very easy to die here. I always hop on this ledge. These rats take 4 fireballs to kill. So on max difficulty, they actually can be very deadly. If it wasn't on max difficulty, obviously it doesn't matter, but they will kill you very quick if you're not careful with these rats. It is also important to make sure you wait an hour in between every combat because that way you'll have max magicka going into the fight. Really the only battles that are tricky here are when there's more than one opponent. You'll want to retreat because again, they'll kill you in not a ton of hits. See, I wait an hour there. There's multiple rats. Obviously aiming better would help me quite a bit here. You know, that just takes practice. These rats, they kind of jump erratically, so they're very easy to miss. If you don't pick a High Elf or a Breton, you'll still be okay. And that's because in the tutorial, you can use a weapon and armor. You could play as a Nord, and it's not a terrible idea because then on your first level up, going from 1 to 2, you'll have +5 endurance and +5 strength if you use heavy armor and you repair it, etc. However, anytime you fight 2 opponents, you're going to want to use a greater power like Adrenaline Rush or the Nord 30% shield or the Breton 50% shield. For this build, I'm leaning very heavily into the magic aspect, so I'm just not going to waste my time waiting 24 hours to use greater powers. I don't want to. Next, we're going to choose our Birthsign. I think the 3 main ones for a mage are Mage, Apprentice, or Atronach. These kind of highlight the weaknesses and strengths of each one. Mage, I think, is the best choice by far. I don't know why there's a 0 right there. Apprentice is the one I'm going to choose in this playthrough, and that's because it has a very high magicka pool, and I don't have to deal with the tedium of Atronach. Atronach's absolutely viable. I think the hardest part about max difficulty is it can feel really tedious. And I don't want to play a tedious game. That's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking to kind of blast through everything. However, keep in mind, with 100% magic weakness, so your damage taken from spells is going to be 1.25 times 2, so 2.5 damage. And where a Breton, for example, is going to take 0.5 times damage, a Breton mage, because they have 50% magic resist. So notice that's 5 times more damage as the Apprentice High Elf. You will get nuked very quickly. You're going to have to dodge everything. However, this can be overcome late game with mysticism, and I'll talk about that more later when I make my class, because you can use short duration, high magnitude, reflect, or spell absorption spells. However, before I get to the class, I really want to talk about this goblin here. So this goblin right up here, he doesn't have a weapon, you probably notice. And however, when he hits me really hard, and that's because he doesn't have a weapon. I've talked about this before in other videos, but NPCs without weapons use hand-to-hand, and creatures like goblins work as both NPCs and creatures. They have creature damage, which is 3. They just deal 3 damage. Rats deal 2. They deal 3 damage. Because max difficulty is a 6 times multiplier, 3 damage is going to hit you for 18 every time. Remember, a Breton only starts with 60 health, and my high elf is starting with 80 health. So it's very easy to get nuked by a goblin dealing 18 damage a hit. However, if you see the other goblins with weapons, they're only doing 1 damage. Because if they have very low blunt skill, I'm level 1. They have very low blunt skill. They're using a rusty iron mace. They have no strength because that's how NPC stats are calculated. They're dealing 1 damage. 1 times 6 is only 6. Maybe they're dealing 2, so they'll do 12. But on max difficulty, those differences are very obvious. So the unarmed goblins, the one goblin I would probably want to use a potion, or in that time I accidentally pull 2 goblins. Okay, the last tutorial fight I'm going to talk about is just this shaman goblin. He shoots 2 spells. So if you notice, because of his staff, he can shoot that fireball and that shock very quickly right after. And because of this, it's actually a little trickier to dodge. You notice I don't dodge it a couple times and I almost die. Just add some distance to him if you need. Make sure you quick save before you fight him in case you die. Not a big deal. If you need to use potions again, this is another fight where you would want to do that. You'll probably be able to figure this out on your own too, unless you're really stupid, but you want to let the blades deal with any of the Mythic Dawn people. That one that kills the Emperor, he can be really tricky and take you out too. Okay, next you choose your class. For specialization, I'm going to choose magic for this build. And for your attributes, you really want to choose endurance. Your second attribute isn't as important. In this playthrough, I do strength for the carry weight because a common theme in this guide is going to be convenience. You don't want to optimize and min-max so much that you waste a ton of your time. If it takes hundreds of hours to become powerful in a max playthrough build, you're not going to want to finish it, at least if you're anything like me. Maybe you have the time and you're going to want to, but for me, I really care about saving my time and creating a powerful build more quickly than that. So it is going to take a lot of grinding, no matter what you do. So my majors, I have Destruction. That's because it's going to be my primary damage source. I want to get to 50 fast, get those journeyman skills. We're going to use weakness stacking. That's how we're going to do crazy amounts of damage. Next, we have Restoration. This is required for the big buffs like Fortify Magicka, fortifying your int or your willpower. It's very tedious to level as a minor. It only gains 0.6 experience per cast, so I'm going to choose it as a major. It's the only way we're going to level it without spamming trainers. Mysticism, well, this is how I'm going to overcome my birth sign and my race. I'm going to use low duration, high magnitude spell reflect. And so, for example, if I get Spellbreaker and I have 30% spell reflect and I get the Mundane Ring, that'll put me to 60% spell reflect. I'll only need to cast 40% spell reflect to be completely immune to magic. Now that is still very expensive. We'll talk about that later when we get there. So I might need to do 2 different 20% spell reflect spells to actually cap it out. Mercantile isn't really important, but again, convenience. I really care about convenience. Having Mercantile as a major means it'll start higher, so you won't have to go steal poison apples so many times. Illusion's going to be useful, but again, you don't really need to choose it as a major because you can use it just fine as a minor. This will just speed up that process. Athletics will help me not die, so that's really nice. And Conjuration, the thing about Conjuration at max difficulty is similar to Poison is it's unaffected by difficulty. So I am not going to fully base my build around this, but at the beginning of the game, we are going to be using summons. They will help us tank, and they act as if they're on normal difficulty. So they functionally are doing 6 times damage and have 6 times health in max difficulty because they behave as if they are normal. Okay, so now we're going to jump into the part where you exit the sewers. As you probably notice, the cold touch here that I'm using, if you pick Destruction as a major skill, it kills these guys pretty fast. It does 15 damage. It's pretty useful. These goblins die relatively quick. Nothing's going to be a challenge for the rest of your exit of the sewers here. Now that I am out of the sewers, my goal is to make gold. So first I just have to move a little bit so I can fast travel. I'm going to fast travel to the east gate in Cheydinhal, run out that gate, and just run east up this road here. Go up this road, follow those deer, keep going a little bit. I edited some out just so you don't have to watch me run so long. This tree, at the back of that tree, is the entrance to Fort Farragut. In here, there's a bunch of stuff you can steal, take it all, whatever. We're trying to get gold. That's our goal here. And I want you to notice a barrel on the side. So I'm going to show you what I get from that barrel. So first you have to unlock a very hard chest. This minigame, all you have to worry about is when the tumbler goes up slowly, you click. If it goes up quickly, you don't click. It goes up quick, you don't click. Slow, you do click. That's it. That's the whole game. Then what you get here is you get 10 poison apples. These weigh nothing and have 300 value, which is going to be really useful for getting gold. Next, you want to sneak, because when you fast travel while sneaking, more time passes, and every 3 days those apples are going to come back. Now this is the place we can sell those apples, get our gold. There's a heavy armor trainer here. There's people who sell a lot of spells that we have to buy. So it's just a great place to be. the Market District. This guy right here,
It's my pleasure.
Nilphys Somelian. He's
Have
got
a
low
look at-
mercantile skill. You can usually haggle him. We'll see if 60 works. It might not. That's fine. And we're just going to sell those poison apples. So that's a lot of gold. Already
That's
we're up to
more than I
2,000, which
usually pay.
is quite a bit for someone of,
A good price?
you know,
That's
level
a
1,
good deal.
I should say. Someone of, I don't even know what I'm talking about. We don't need bear pelts. We don't need flood rubies. So we're just going to sell all this. Oh.
That's
Well, yeah, we don't need repair hammers at the moment. Maybe later we'll buy a bunch. Okay. So we got over 2,000 gold. We can train heavy armor. All right, I'm going to jump back and forth between game footage. It's just taking too long. I want to speed it up. So here, I'm going to go train heavy armor. This way I can increase my endurance. 5 trainings to heavy armor will give me a +3 to endurance when I level up. I'm not going to wear heavy armor. The fact is, on max difficulty, if you're taking hits, you're probably dying. So I want you want to train heavy armor, armor, or block, and that way you will not be required to actually block, to actually wear armor that you need to repair. Now, armorer you can cheese quite a bit, especially after you get into the Mages Guild. I'm going to naturally get into the Mages Guild in this playthrough. However, you can go to the High Elves. So if you watch my footage here, after the Alchemist, after I buy a bunch of alchemy ingredients, because I'm going to power level alchemy, not power level, I shouldn't say that. I'm going to level alchemy as I level up, and it's going to give me +5 intelligence on each level. But this Mystic Emporium here, this is where you can go to the woman in here, Arlen Way, and she sells those candles for the Tower DLC, and you can use that for spell making and enchanting. I'm going to go through the process of joining the Mages Guild just to show that even without the DLC, you can do it. The only difficult ones are Bleak Flats Cave, where you have to save Earthor, and the other one is the Leowin recommendation quest, because you have to go through a whole dungeon crawl and kill a couple people. That can be tricky. And then real quick, next right here, I just steal the 500 gold from the arena. You have to wait until nighttime, and you have to line of sight that guard. Nothing too crazy. All right, next I'm going to make my home base anvil. So I joined the Anvil Mages Guild, and I just start stealing and selling. I just pick up everything I can and sell it to this guy. It's not so much, you don't need too much gold. You need enough to train every level, and you need enough, I'm going to need a lot to buy spells. You're going to need a lot of custom spells to be powerful. After that, we are going to buy spells. Just anytime you're in a Mages Guild stealing stuff, just talk to the people there, look for spells you want. You're going to want low-level things that you can cast. That's what we're going to need to do to train up our skills. Then we're going to go to the Fighters Guild in Anvil. It's right there. That's our next home base. We're going to use this area to power level our skills. We don't want to power level too much, but I don't want to be level 1. Some people do like to play max difficulty at level 1. I do not enjoy that at all. I want to have a powerful character, so I'm going to make that. We don't need perfectly efficiently leveled levels, but it's nice to get 5 willpower, 5 int, and with trainers, we can get 3 endurance every single time. And so that's all we're going to get for a while. Probably the first 10 levels, we're going to get +3 to endurance. I'm going to keep that process going with these trainers. I do recommend actually going back to the Market District and training in heavy armor if you ever are going to wear armor. I don't plan on it. I want 100% spell effectiveness, so I'm just going to use block every time. So I do that for a couple levels. I run out of gold. I got to go get more poison apples. However, the Conjurer will randomly attack you. When that happens, go lead him back to town. Oh, there he is. He teleported. So get him, guards. Hide behind a guard.
That the best you can do?
Get a skeleton. Let's take him out. Come on, do a power attack, guard. What is going on here? Can we, there we go. Thank you. So just to spell out exactly what I'm doing and why I'm doing it, the first steps, go to Fort Farragut, steal those poison apples, get gold, use trainers. That gold is going to help you buy ingredients from vendors. You can buy whatever you need. You get infinite gold from poison apples. They respawn every 3 days. You can just fast travel around while sneaking. The days will pass quick enough. Level alchemy, level conjuration, and alteration. Alchemy and alteration are both minor skills. Just increase them. Alteration by 10. If you do alchemy by any amount, it's going to be wasted because 10 conjuration is going to give you +5 int anyway, but you're going to need alchemy. You could also level other skills. You know, if you're leveling destruction, if you ever are fighting, you level, if your athletics or mercantile go up, it won't be a problem because with alchemy, you'll still get that +5 int. Get to level 4 or 5 is what I like to do. That's +5 int, +5 willpower, and +3 endurance every level with very, very little effort. And your goal there is to kind of get 50 conjuration because then you can have a more powerful summon. The strategy, be a coward. Hide behind your summon. Use your guards, use your summons, carry bows and poison, because that way you don't have to get close to enemies. You don't have to let anything hit you. I would hold on to healing potions and poisons, because that's what you're going to need to win any combat there. That up for a bit. It might take a couple hours of gameplay, but we're stealing, you're getting gold, you're leveling your skills, you're becoming more powerful using trainers. Just take whatever you want, sell everything. I'm doing all this while doing the recommendation quests that don't require combat. So for example, getting the Ring of Burden doesn't require me to go and fight things. It's only the Leowin, the Anvil, and the Skingrad recommendations quests that require any combat. Anvil, you have 2 followers. You can hide behind them, especially if you have a summon. You should be just fine. The Bleak Flats Cave one, Skingrad, is what we're going to do next, because that gets me a permanent follower until I finish all of the guilds. Before we get there, I do have to mention, anytime you see a Grand Soul Gem, buy it. We can turn that into a Black Soul Gem, and that is going to allow us to get Grand Souls even at low levels. So especially if you're doing a low level playthrough, you're going to want to do that. Always buy Grand Soul Gems. You should have the gold to do it from Poison Apples. Another tip I should mention is when you are buying ingredients, you can use your down arrow key and the enter button to buy ingredients a little bit faster. You just hit enter, down, and alternate between the two. I think it's a lot faster than clicking and then clicking yes and clicking yes. This is on normal speed. I'm not speeding up this video at all, and it's not like I'm buying it that fast, but remember, max difficulty, convenience is really important. You don't want to waste a ton of time. Important tip, always be nice to Dharma or you will have very bad karma. Be careful. Alright, after Dharma, if you do run into any enemies while out in the wilderness, you should be fine because you can summon by now, hopefully. You make sure you're buying a summon. If you pick it as a major skill, you have Summon Skeleton to start. I would buy a better one as soon as you can. Your power level and conjuration, if it's at 50, you will be just fine. So with this mage build, you will actually do enough damage to be able to kill things. 20 damage isn't a lot even at low levels, but things don't have a lot of health. They'll take 6 times as long to die. So you'll do solid damage. You will burn through that magicka very fast, especially if you're a Breton mage. That's another reason I'm a high elf apprentice, but you can use potions. You can make a lot of potions. You can make infinite. And you can always add poisons to your bow if you want to add to that. Remember, poisons will effectively do 6 times damage because they are independent of difficulty. Some of the challenges you're going to find, or at least I've found while making this guide, is it is way more boring if you avoid combat too much. Find times to fight things, shoot some fireballs that'll make you feel better. Do not just grind skills for hours and hours and hours. Unless you really love that kind of thing. I did it for maybe 30, 40 minutes, and I got to level 5. And yep, I was getting that +5 int and willpower every time and 3 endurance, but it gets old quick. So don't do it too much if it's going to make you bored of the game. Grinding that much, if that's what it takes to overcome max difficulty, I don't think it's worth it, in my opinion. Okay, are you kidding me? I hate scamps so much. I'm ready to uninstall this game just because of that. Never conjuring again. Fucking game pissed me off. Alright, after that, to put myself in a better mood, I joined the Fighters Guild, and I wanted to kill some mountain lions that I knew would be distracted by rats. So this is a good one. Obviously, as you can see, even burning through all my magicka is not enough to kill it. So that's why conjurations and poisons are very important to help you. So my primary goal at this stage of the game is to finish joining the Mages Guild, so I'm working on all those recommendation quests still, and to continue leveling my conjuration and alteration and destruction, and to get to 10 renown. At 10 renown, you can use the Joan Stone, which is kind of a game changer. And by the time I get enchanting, I want to have the Joan Stone because I'm going to use that to fortify my destruction. All my enchants is going to be fortify destructions. As we get to high levels, we'll switch it up and we'll grind out mysticism. When we have 100 mysticism, we'll have some defenses. But around the mid game, you don't need too many defenses because there's not too many magic attacks like Spell Reflect that you can't really handle. So I really just need to make sure I can do lots of damage and kill everything before they get to me. A way to help you do that is this guy, Silenus Vasinus. He is in the Skingrad Mages Guild. He's got lots of great spells. If you are not an Ultimer, this is where you get the weakness spells. I don't know why I'm buying them here. I forgot I picked High Elf. He also has decent spells like Hailstone or other spells that are on touch. So he's got both target and touch high-level destruction spells. So before you have spell making, he's really useful, and he's useful for base spells that you can use later in spell making. If you ever don't have enough gold for him, you can always fast travel back to Fort Farragut, go steal your 10 poison apples, and sell them. It just takes 3 days. You can do it again and again. Okay, by this point, hopefully we've grinded up a bit, and you have solid conjuration. I would recommend 50, but 25 is fine. I usually head to my first kind of dungeon crawl, and this is the Bleak Flats Cave outside of Skingrad. And make sure you're picking up those flax seeds, pick up all the ingredients you have, but now with the Scamp, you can handle something with poison immunity. If you have a level 50 summon, it will be even easier. I go through this whole thing. This is also a great time to level your destruction. So if you did just buy the tower, you can buy a weakness to self, and I'll show that in my part 2, and just spam cast it on yourself. As long as you add a touch spell, it goes a lot faster. This is assuming I have no DLC, so I have to go through this. These guys take a long time to die, as you can see that, but I'm never technically in danger. If I don't want to get hit, I never have to get hit. So I could use these, and as you see, I'm using my Restore Magica potions, as a way to just gain a bunch of levels to my destruction. However, that takes a very, very long time. So when you finally want to kill them, summon your Scamp or summon your whatever, that will finish them off. After you go through this entire cave, it takes a bit of time. It's not difficult. The zombies are never really a threat. You'll find Earthor. He asks you, should I go back on my own or can I follow you? Tell him to follow you. This is going to give you an essential follower, so essentially that is a follower who cannot die. So combined with your summons, you will have Earthor getting in the way. He might conjure his own summon, and then you have your summon as well, so the 4 of you can take on pretty much anything. There are other ways to get followers. I don't like to, this is kind of cheating, so I don't like to do it too much. But it will be very useful if you want to beat the Leowin recommendation quest. That one is very difficult without a follower. It's doable because you're summons and poisons, but this way Earthor will kind of carry us through that. Don't forget, throughout this entire time, we are training heavy armor, we are stealing poison apples and selling them, you're buying ingredients from alchemists, you're leveling your alchemy, we're gaining levels, we're becoming more powerful. That's important too. Okay, what's going to come up for part 2 is I'm going to show you footage of my character turning those Grand Soul Gems into Black Soul Gems and using them to get Grand Souls. I'm going to enchant 5 pieces of my gear with plus 10 destruction. I'm going to get Fortify Skill from a Doomstone if I need. I should be able to get the Jones Stone by then. If not, there's the Tower Stone or the Steed Stone. There's plenty that have Fortify Skill. I'm going to make a custom spell that combines Weakness to Magic and Weakness to Fire 100% for 5 seconds. These are the costs of those spells. Now I want you to notice, right now I have about 50 skill. So that means that to do that weakness spell on target, it will cost me 76, and then do a fire spell that's on target 20 damage for 3 seconds. That's going to have a base cost of 158, and with my skill be 126. So for 240 damage, it'll cost me 202 Magicka. As in Altmer, I started out with 300 Magicka, so I will be able to cast that once. However, on max difficulty, that's not going to one-shot an opponent. That's the problem here. So I need to use those in Fortify Destruction and Chance at 100 skill, casting that weakness on target first, and then casting that damaging spell. I would deal 240 damage for 50 Magicka, which is far more manageable, especially if I have a lot of Restore Magicka potions. And if I cast this spell twice within 5 seconds, it would refresh the duration back to 5 seconds, and instead of being times 4 here in this formula, it would be times 9, and so my damage would be 540. And if I cast that weakness a third time, it would be times 16, and I would just have to be multiplying this 19 by 3 times then. So I could say plus this times 2. So if I cast that 3 times and then hit them with my fire spell, those are all target. I never have to get up in touch range. That's 960 damage for less than 100 Magicka, which is less than 1/3 of my starting Magicka. So I'm going to demonstrate that in the next part 2 video. Part 3 will be talking about how I can not die, because as I get to high levels, I will need a lot of defenses through alteration and mysticism and my enchants. That'll be a lot easier as I naturally get destruction to a high level. Obviously, that's not going to work right now because I need all my enchants giving me that destruction skill. All right, thanks for watching. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments.